My sister and I awakened two systems simultaneously. One was the purge system, it could consume physical stamina to erase anything. The other was the stockpile system, it had unlimited storage space. As her older brother, I took pity on her weak constitution and chose the purge system that would drain my stamina. My sister took the stockpile system. 7 days later, the apocalypse arrived. Extreme cold and zombie tides swept through the city. Using the purge system, I threw myself into clearing the undead and quickly became a hero of the city. My sister could only manage inventory in the back room. Then during one zombie tide, I was critically wounded and desperate for supplies, only to find my sister had locked the safe house from inside. She looked at me without emotion and said, "Why should you be the hero while I'm just a warehouse manager?" And when I opened my eyes again, my sister had already grabbed the purge system. Seeing that told me everything. She'd been reborn too. I smiled. She had no idea what the purge system actually cost. Using it burned through physical stamina at a catastrophic rate. Even with my superior physique, one session left me as wrecked as a fever patient. For someone like her, a pampered girl who couldn't twist open a bottle cap, one use would probably put her in bed for 3 days. The moment I opened my eyes, I heard my sister say, "Brother, I want the red one." Like a child terrified someone would steal her toy, she lunged and grabbed the purge system icon. The instant her fingers touched it, her face exploded into triumphant delight. This life, it's my turn to be the hero the world reveres. Then she looked back at me with unmasked arrogance. "Silly brother, you don't know yet, do you? The strongest ability is already mine. This time around, it's your turn to beg me." I strolled over to the abandoned stockpile system. "Jing-Ching, are you sure you want that one? The one that looks like a combat type tends to be quite grueling." "It looks like the combat kind. You'll have a hard time." Riding high on what felt like divine luck, Jing-Ching was already insufferably inflated. She tossed her hair with a practiced air of maturity. "Brother, I've thought it through. You've been protecting me my whole life. Let me protect you this time. The dirty, dangerous fighting, I'll handle it. That gold one is probably just a storage space, right? Suits someone detail-oriented like you. Just focus on logistics for me." "Protect me?" I laughed coldly inside. What she meant was, make me your tool, then drain every drop of value from me the same way I protected her in the last life. I said nothing. I reached out and gently touched the gold icon in front of me. A warm golden light instantly wrapped around me. System bound. Host, Jean Buffon. Ability, unlimited stockpile. Time until apocalypse, 167 hours, 59 minutes. Meanwhile, Jing-Ching, already bound, was waving her arms excitedly at the air. The crystal ashtray on the coffee table vanished in an instant. Jing-Ching went pale, pressing her hand to her chest to catch her breath, then immediately broke into a wild grin. "It's real. It's really real. I have that power." She turned to look at me. The dependency I'd always seen in her eyes was gone, replaced by naked, shameless condescension. "Brother, I'm a little tired. Get me some water, and give me that bank card Mom and Dad left. I need to go buy some things and get ready." She spoke to me exactly as you'd address a servant. I looked at this blood sister who had pushed me into the abyss in my previous life, and slowly breathed out one word. "Get out." The air froze, the smile locked up on Jing-Ching's face. She even wondered if she'd heard wrong. From birth until now, I had always done whatever she wanted, without question. "Brother, what did you just say? Are you still angry because I took the red system? But I was just trying to protect you." I said get out. I stood and looked down at Jing-Ching from a height. "And another thing, this is my house. My name is on the deed. You have 10 minutes to pack your things and get out." "Are you insane?" Jing-Ching finally dropped the act. "This is Mom and Dad's house. By what right are you kicking me out? And I just awakened the strongest ability. Do you know what that means? The apocalypse is almost here. Only I can protect you. If you cross me now and beg me later, I won't lift a finger." She was way too confident, assuming I'd grovel at her feet the same as before. I smiled and walked toward her, step by step, until I had her backed into a corner. "The strongest ability." I slammed my fist into the wall right beside Jing-Ching's ear. The crack made her shriek and drop to her knees with her head covered. "Your so-called ability just makes things disappear. You can't create food from nothing. In 7 days, the temperature drops to -60. Without food and clothing, you could erase this entire building and still freeze and starve to death." Jing-Ching shuddered. She knew she'd overlooked that, but she quickly straightened up defiantly. "So what? I'll take anyone who refuses to hand over supplies. I'll make them disappear. As for you and your pathetic storage space, you'll be crawling back to me soon enough. Good luck with that." I was done wasting words. I walked to the front door, pulled it open. "Get out, now, or I'll call building security to drag you out. Don't forget, it's still a civilized society. Trespassing in a private residence is something I can report to the police." Jing-Ching stared at my unyielding back, the venom in her eyes nearly overflowing. Fine. Since you're cutting ties, don't blame me for what comes next. When the apocalypse hits, I'll watch you crawl to me with your pile of junk. Jean Buffon, you'll regret this. Jing Qing stormed into her room, threw a few clothes and pieces of jewelry into a suitcase, and dragged it out furiously. At the door she shot me one last venomous glare. This life. I'll make you die like a dog in front of me. The door slammed shut. I leaned against it and let out a long breath. Step 1. Severance complete. Without this backstabbing wolf in sheep's clothing hovering over me, I could finally go all in. I checked the time on my phone. January 15, 2026. 10 a.m. Exactly 7 days until the apocalypse. I immediately listed my apartment online, worth roughly $8 million, for urgent sale. Combined with the inheritance my parents had left, I had about $11 million. But building a fortress that could withstand negative 70 degrees, repel zombie tides, and stockpile enough supplies for a lifetime, $11 million wouldn't even scratch the surface. I called the bank and mortgaged the company shares and the apartment. Then I called several private lenders. After that, I maxed out every online loan platform and every credit card I had. I was a reckless gambler in a one-afternoon sprint. By end of day, my liquid capital had reached 16 million. Close enough. Looking at those dizzying numbers in my bank account, I felt no excitement. Only urgency. Money was just paper. Only supplies were survival. I drove my SUV, which I hadn't gotten around to selling, straight to the outskirts. My target was clear. The abandoned cold chain logistics park in the west suburbs. It used to be the city's largest refrigerated warehouse complex. It had gone to ruin after the owner ran off with the funds. Remote location. Open terrain on all sides. One entrance easily defended. In my previous life it had been seized by a black market gang, and became one of the largest survivor bases in the later stages of the apocalypse. This time it was mine. I found the old caretaker, pulled out $20,000 in cash, and told him I wanted to rent the site for 2 weeks as an immersive horror escape room setup. Cash only, no contract, just the keys. Faced with a fat stack of red bills, the old man's dentures nearly flew out of his mouth. He handed over the keys without a word. The moment I had them, I locked the gate from inside and walked into the massive underground cold storage. 2 years abandoned, but sitting 10 meters underground, the space stayed cold, damp, and pitch dark year-round. About 3,000 square meters, 8 meters high. System scanning current space. I gave the command silently. Scan complete. Semi-enclosed underground space detected. Meets basic conditions for safe modification. Initiate spatial anchoring. Upon anchoring, this space becomes a real-world material transfer hub. You may teleport external supplies directly here at any time, or release items from your system space into this location. Anchor. Location secured. Now fill it. I drove straight to the city's largest agricultural wholesale market, and went absolutely berserk. My buying frenzy caused a stir across the entire market. A mysterious young man buying like he was running a distribution warehouse. It even caught the attention of the market management office. I had my cover story ready. I told them this was annual supply procurement for several large remote mountain mines. They were about to go into seasonal shutdown and needed everything stocked now. In an era where money opens every door, as long as you pay, even the most outlandish story finds someone willing to back it up. By nightfall, the first convoy of supply-laden trucks rolled into the west suburb warehouse. Once all the workers had left or gone to bed, I relocked the iron gate. The vast cold storage was now stacked mountain-high with goods. I walked to a 5-meter-high pile of rice sacks, raised my palm against the bottom bag, and said one word: collect. 50 tons of rice vanished from sight in an instant. I closed my eyes and sent my consciousness into the system space, that boundless white expanse, where 50 tons of rice floated serenely in the air, holding the exact shape it had been stacked in. Time was frozen in here. Even 100 years from now, this rice would cook up just as fresh. Yes. I couldn't hold back a low, satisfied growl. The feeling of pulling everything into your grasp and controlling it all. It was genuinely intoxicating. But this was just the beginning. Negative 60 degrees of extreme cold, without a heat source. All this food was just frozen rock. I also arranged the purchase of 10,000 tons of smokeless coal, diesel fuel, solar panels, and generators. 7 days. I had to not only stockpile enough food to last 10 lifetimes in this cold storage, I had to convert it into a thermally regulated fortress that could take a nuclear blast. Just then a message came through. From Jing Qing. It was a photo. Her and her boyfriend Chin Su, sitting in a high-end French restaurant. Poor little brother. Kicked out of the house and living on instant noodles now? My boyfriend and I are celebrating our new life. If you get on your knees right now and beg me, I might consider sharing a piece of bread with you. I looked at the screen, a slow smile curling the corner of my mouth. Enjoy it. Eat well. This is the last meal either of you will ever call a proper human dinner. I typed back 2 words. Dress warm. Then blocked the number and powered off the phone. I stood on the second-floor catwalk suspended over the main floor. Dozens of workers swarmed like ants inside the belly of the steel giant. Boss, your specs might be a bit, Extreme? The speaker was Old Hay, the most wildcard contractor in the city. He held the blueprint covered in dense specifications, and he was wearing the expression of a man in serious digestive distress. 50-centimeter aerospace-grade thermal insulation lining everywhere, and then 2 layers of 20-millimeter ballistic steel plating on top of that. These specs? Are you building against an atom bomb? Or against Godzilla? And you want to seal every original ventilation shaft, leaving only 2 intake ports fitted with biochemical filtration systems. Old Hay wiped his forehead. Brother, this isn't cheap. The money's already in your account. 5 million upfront. I need it done in 3 days. All materials must be on hand. If they're not on hand, pull them off another job site. I'll cover the cost difference at triple rate. I turned and met Old Hay's eyes. One rule only. Don't ask why. Don't take photos. Don't post anything. Another 2 million once it's complete. That's your silence fee. Old Hay's throat bobbed violently. 7 million, that was roughly 2 years of his usual profit. Done, boss. You're basically my birth father right now. Since you're this generous, I'll put everything I've got on the line. 3 days from now, if I don't deliver, you can unscrew my head and use it as a soccer ball. Watching Old Hay's energized back, striding away like a man who'd just been injected with adrenaline, I felt nothing at all. What I was building wasn't just a shelter. It was a complete ecosystem, independent of the apocalypse entirely. I walked to a corner of the warehouse where a new delivery of special materials sat. The massive wooden crates were pried open, revealing the deep metallic glint of their contents. Not ordinary steel, but a high-voltage electric perimeter generator and military-grade blast-proof glass, sourced through unconventional channels. In the early apocalypse, what was most terrifying wasn't the zombies. It was human nature. When starvation and cold drove people into beasts, a standard roller door became paper against a mob. I had the system collect all the building materials, then used spatial fine-tuning to position them against the blueprint. While the workers were on their lunch break, my fingers cleared the heavy blast glass. Tens of tons of material vanished. Then, under the system's precise control, was seamlessly installed into the skylight windows of the warehouse ceiling. As the last construction vehicle drove out and the massive iron gates rolled shut, I stood at the center of my own steel fortress, surrounded by mountains of supplies. Not enough. Far from enough. I checked my remaining balance. Under 50,000 left. Normal purchasing channels were exhausted. What came next was a night of zero-cost procurement. 2 in the morning. East District Bonded Logistics Center. The city's largest export cargo hub. Thousands of shipping containers stacked like toy blocks along the dock, loaded with premium goods from across the globe. That one night I all but emptied half the high-value bonded warehouses, until a faint pricking sensation spread through my brain. The warning that came with overextending mental energy. Reluctantly, I stopped with my work still unfinished. Just as I was preparing to withdraw, a sudden cacophony of engines shattered the night silence. Several black modified SUVs roared into the port. They stopped in front of a concealed warehouse nearby. Doors opened. 15 or so tattooed men climbed out. The bald leader was barking orders at his men. Move faster. The boss said this batch gets out tonight. The higher-ups have been watching. The boxes they were loading bore unmistakable hazmat symbols. I squinted and triggered the system's long-range scan. Scan result: TNT explosives, detonators, industrial nitric acid, weapons. My heartbeat skipped a beat. This was the Black Sand Gang's smuggling depot, the largest criminal syndicate in the city. Looking at that TNT capable of destroying zombies and blasting through any defensive structure, I licked my lips. This was practically a gift delivered to my front door. With explosives like these, I'd have my final ace in the hole. Since fate had put them in my path, I silently pressed myself flat against the thin metal wall of the warehouse, just inside the system's collection range. System lock on all explosives inside the warehouse. Collect everything. The gang members inside the warehouse felt a blur before their eyes, the heavy boxes suddenly gone from their hands. Then silence fell. 15 men frozen in their carrying positions, arms holding nothing but air. What the? Where are the boxes? I'm seeing things, ghosts. Boss, something's wrong. The goods, they're gone. All of them. The bald leader stormed in, stared at the completely empty warehouse, his expression cycling from fury to terror to questioning his own existence. Who did this? Show yourself. He drew his pistol and waved it at the empty air in a frenzy. But I had already used the chaos to scale the port's perimeter wall, and dissolved into the darkness. Countdown. 24 hours. The city's last day was still loud. Nobody knew this was the final sunset of the old world. The Weather Service had issued a cold front blue alert. Temperatures expected to drop 10 to 15 degrees by morning. Nobody took it seriously. At most it meant reaching for an extra pair of thermal underwear. I didn't go out again. I stayed in the West Suburb Fortress making final checks. Every door and window had been sealed. Only the one main entrance remained. I picked up my phone for one last look at the social feeds. Jing Qing had posted an hour ago. Even though winter is coming, my heart is warm. Thank you to my boyfriend for the surprise. The future is bright. Some people can hug their sad little pile of trash for warmth. I laughed genuinely widely. I liked the post, then commented beneath it, enjoy this last bit of warmth. Very soon, it'll get much more enthusiastic. Just then, the light drizzle outside the window abruptly stopped. Then a hailstone the size of a ping-pong ball cracked hard against the blast-proof glass. Then a second. Then a third. The hail fell like bullets. Behind it came a howling gale. Temperature began dropping off a cliff. An emergency news alert flashed on my phone screen. Breaking. Under the influence of an extreme polar vortex, global temperatures will plunge 50 degrees within the next 3 hours. All citizens are ordered to return home immediately. This is not a drill. Apocalypse arrived. 10 minutes. The world outside had already changed color. The road surface was glazing over in thick black ice. A dozen cars slid into each other and ignited, but the flames couldn't spread before the cold air pressed them down into a bizarre frozen state. People inside the cars panicked and tried to push doors open, but the doors were frozen solid. Someone smashed a window and climbed out. The moment they touched the outside air, the heat was stripped from their body instantly. Their movements seized up. The expression of terror hardened on their face. They became perfectly lifelike ice sculptures. The indoor thermometer showed outside temperatures had already broken -30, and still dropping at 1 degree per minute. Inside the safe house, temperature held steady at 24 degrees. I stripped off my jacket, down to just a thin t-shirt, and placed a slice of Wagyu beef that had been simmering perfectly into my mouth. Perfect. Meanwhile, across town in a high-rise apartment, it's so cold. What's happening? Why did the heating stop? Jing Qing was bundled in her brand-new cashmere blanket, still shivering violently. Just moments ago, the entire building's heating system had collapsed, the pipes bursting from the extreme cold. The room temperature had dropped to -5. Not fatal yet, but for someone as pampered as Jing Qing, this was already hell. Chun Su, think of something, we're going to freeze to death. She shook the man beside her awake. Chun Su was freezing too. He was already frantically piling every piece of clothing he could find onto himself. Stop yelling at me. I'm cold too. This weather, how did it change so fast? Quick, look around. Are there any hand warmers? They're in that box over there. Jing Qing pointed to the corner. The two frantically rummaged through it, only to find fewer than 10 hand warmer packs left. Not enough to last the night. Right, your brother has money, doesn't he? He must be staying at a luxury hotel or have bought heating equipment. Call him, fast. Jing Qing seized on this like a lifeline, grabbed her phone with trembling hands, and dialed my number. The number you have dialed is switched off. Damn it. Jing Qing slammed the phone onto the couch in frustration. That bastard actually turned off his phone. Don't panic, Chen Su said, eyes flickering. I remember now. I saw your brother at the South City wholesale market a few days ago. I was far away, but I could faintly hear him talking about the west suburbs and a factory. There's an abandoned factory out there. He's definitely hiding out there in conditions like this. Let's go find him. Right now, in that blizzard? Jing Qing glanced at the terrifying storm outside and hesitated. If we don't go, we die here. This snow isn't stopping anytime soon. In a few more hours, the pipes in here will burst. We have a car. It has heat. As long as we find your brother, between your system and my brain, we can handle him. Once we're in, his supplies become ours. Greed conquered fear. The two wrapped themselves in every piece of clothing they had, and pushed out into the storm. They dove into the car. The moment warm air came through the vents, they both exhaled in relief. West suburbs, Jing Qing said. A flash of vicious determination crossed her eyes. When I find Jean Buffon, I'm making him kneel in the snow and beg my forgiveness. Meanwhile, out in the west suburbs, I was watching a corner of my security feed. Several stray dogs were huddled together, shaking in the cold. Suddenly one of them convulsed violently. Its eyes flooded red in an instant. An inhuman, piercing shriek tore across the wasteland. The mutated zombie dog lunged at its companions. Blood splattered across the snow and flash froze into crimson crystals. These weren't infected by a normal virus. This was a hungering cold mutation. They felt no fear. The cold only made them more frenzied. I set down my chopsticks. It's finally starting. I rose, walked to the control panel, and pressed the red button. Combat Defense Mode Level 1 activated. The high-voltage electric perimeter fence outside sparked and crackled in the blizzard. Blue arcs of electricity sizzled in the wind and snow. I picked up a glass of red wine and raised it toward the storm on the monitors. Welcome to hell, my guests. The blizzard in the west suburbs had already escalated into a white catastrophe. Outside, visibility was under 5 meters. A white BMW X5 lurched like a drunk man through half a meter of snow-buried road. Jing Qing sat in the passenger seat, wrapped in 2 down blankets, still shaking so hard her teeth were chattering. Stop talking, Chunsu said, gripping the steering wheel with hands that had lost feeling, purple and completely numb. The NAV says it's just ahead. Damn it. Can't see the road at all. A sharp crack. The car lurched and sank. Then it died completely. The chassis had high-centered on a chunk of solid ice. The car's dead, Chunsu said, punching the wheel in despair, and immediately winced as his frozen hands hit the ice-cold cover. What? Jing-Ching screamed. You want me to die out here? Shut up, you come drive then. Chunsu snapped back, then stopped. His eyes landed on a dark shape through the blizzard. A building. That must be the factory. We walk. They had no other choice. Staying in the car meant one outcome. They wrapped themselves tightly in their blankets and stumbled out into the storm like two clumsy penguins. Jing-Ching felt her lungs burning with every breath, each inhale like swallowing ice. 500 meters. A walk that would normally take minutes took them half an hour. When the massive abandoned factory loomed before them, the two were practically crawling to the gate. Then the sight of it stopped them cold. This was no abandoned factory. This was a steel fortress. The original crumbling brick walls had been fully encased in a shell of silver-gray metal panels. Jing-Ching threw herself at the massive solid steel gate and hammered on it with both fists. Their screams were swallowed immediately by the wind. Inside, I was seated on an enormous leather sofa, in front of a full wall of security monitors. Two blurry thermal blobs were pressed against the gate, like two pathetic flies. I held a glass of just decanted Lafite, swirling it gently. Beside me, a small copper hot pot bubbled with red oil, releasing an intoxicating spicy aroma. System. Activate external speakers. I gave the command flatly. Activated. The speaker box outside crackled with static, startling both of them. Then a languid, perfectly calm voice drifted out through the blizzard, faintly amused. Who is it? It's the middle of the night. Don't you know disturbing the peace is against the law? At the sound of my voice, tears burst from Jing-Ching's eyes instantly. Brother. It's me. I'm your sister. Open the door. It's freezing out here. We're going to die. Sister, you say? My voice was unhurried, accompanied by a soft splash, a light slurp. This duck intestine is a little overdone. Who did you say you were again? Outside. Jing-Ching nearly choked on the injustice of it. She was outside dying in the cold like a dog, while he was inside eating hot pot, with duck intestines. That maddening mental image hit her so hard she was already salivating. Her stomach growled in open betrayal. Jean Buffon, stop playing dumb. I know you can hear me. I'm Jing-Ching, your only blood sister. Open the door. When I'm inside I'll explain everything. It was all a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I set down my chopsticks and picked up the mic. I looked at her twisted face on the screen. My gaze went cold. Telling me to get lost. Was that a misunderstanding? Or when you said you'd make me die like a dog in front of you? Was that a misunderstanding too? That was said in anger. Jing-Ching panicked. Brother, you're a man. Why are you so petty? I did wrong before. I admit it. I'm apologizing right now. Okay? I'm sorry. Is that good enough? Now open the door. This wasn't an apology. It was an order. In her worldview, the moment she said those 3 words, I was obligated to forgive her. That had been the rule for 20 years. Too bad the rules had changed. If apologies worked, what would we need police for? I let out a cold laugh. Since you're so full of backbone, use that strongest ability of yours and come in yourself. You have the purge system, don't you? This door's in your way. Clear it. That line struck Jing-Ching like lightning. Right. I have a system. She'd been so frozen she'd forgotten she had abilities. Fine. If you won't open the door, I'll open it myself. Then don't come begging me. A flash of ruthlessness crossed Jing-Ching's eyes. She drew a deep breath, pressed her frozen hand hard against the steel gate. Energy surged through her body. Purge! A red light exploded from her palm and slammed into the steel. But the gate didn't vanish as she'd imagined. Instead, the red light hit something invisible and bounced back. The recoil sent numbness shooting up her arm, and knocked her flat onto her back in the snow. System warning. Target object density too high. Reinforced with high-level energy anchoring spatial lock. Host current level LV1. Insufficient to purge. Note. Forced purge would consume life force. And no. Impossible. Jing-Ching stared in disbelief at the door that hadn't moved a millimeter. My system is supposed to be the strongest. How can it not open one door? A burst of merciless laughter came through the speaker. Forgot to mention, that door is made from 5 million worth of aerospace titanium alloy. And my system happens to be a hard counter to yours. Your purge can't touch my stockpile. Now get away from my door. Don't dirty my snow. Speakers deactivated. The spotlight above the gate blazed to life. 2 blinding beams aimed straight into their faces. The glare left them unable to see. Jingqing sat in the snow, feeling the cold seep into her bones, staring at the door that would never open, and tasted true despair for the first time. Half an hour passed. They hadn't gone anywhere. The car was dead. They could only cower in a recessed alcove of the factory entrance. What do we do? I can't feel my feet anymore. Jingqing's lips had turned purple. Her lashes were frosted with ice crystals. Chinsu was in worse shape. He'd given Jingqing some of his already scarce clothing. Now his whole body was shaking convulsively, his eyes starting to lose focus. Don't sleep. Sleep and you don't wake up. Just then, from somewhere above, an aroma so intense it seemed to reach the soul drifted down. Both of them struggled to look up. Want some? I stood on the second-floor balcony, holding my half-finished hot pot. Please? I beg you. Just one sip. One sip of hot broth. Chensu finally broke. He dropped to his knees in the snow and frantically kowtowed up at me. I even taught you to play basketball once. For the sake of that, save me. Save us. Old bonds, you say? I smiled, and picked up a slice of well-done fatty beef with my chopsticks. When you locked me outside the door, where were those old bonds then? I opened my fingers. That slice of beef, hot, glistening with red oil, dropped into the grimy, bloody snow in front of them. Chunsu almost lunged for it on instinct, but Jingqing was faster. Mine. She snatched the filthy piece of meat, and swallowed it whole without chewing. That fraction of a second of warmth wrung a sound of pure, shuddering satisfaction from her. Taste good. Yes, yes. Jingqing nodded through tears. Good. Since you've eaten, go ahead and leave. My security system's picking up some small friends attracted by the smell. Before they could process it, several pairs of green, glowing eyes lit up in the storm ahead. A low, rolling growl came riding on the wind. The mutated zombie dogs. Go run. Chonsu moved fastest, grabbed Jingqing and bolted, but the ground was solid ice and snow. Both of them slipped and went face-first into the ground. The first zombie dog had already launched itself, his gaping jaws driving straight for Chunsu's thigh. Chunsu let out a screaming howl. He kicked wildly. The dog felt nothing. In the split second of desperation, something calculating flashed in Chunsu's eyes. He grabbed the arm of Jingqing beside him, and shoved her hard toward the dog's jaws, then used the momentum to roll away. What are you doing? Jingqing screamed in horror. The foul-breathed maw was lunging for her throat. In that instant of life and death, the will to survive overrode everything. Jingqing locked onto that massive head with every ounce of focus she had, the red icon in her mind blazing and pulsing. She roared in her mind, "Disappear!" The enormous Tibetan Mastiff skull, 1 centimeter from Jingqing's nose, was erased. Only the headless rear half of the dog dropped heavily onto Jingqing and nearly crushed the breath out of her. Host defeated 1 Tier 1 mutant creature, plus 10 experience. Warning. Stamina critically depleted. Jingqing felt as if the strength had been vacuumed out of her. Her vision blacked at the edges, but she was alive. I lowered my binoculars. That little scene had some entertainment value. A flicker of something passed through my eyes. Since you refuse to leave, I'll point you toward the only way through. My voice came over the speakers again, with the calm deliberation of a devil making an offer. 200 meters east, there's a guardhouse. Used to be where the old security man slept. The glass is broken, but at least it's a shelter. That's your only lifeline tonight. The window closed. Darkness. Just the two of them shaking in the cold, and a growing ring of green eyes in the distance. Go. To the guardhouse. Jingqing pushed the headless dog carcass off herself and hauled upright. She didn't look at Chunsu once. That shove, she'd remember it. In the last second before the zombie dog pack could close the circle, they scrambled and rolled into the decrepit guardhouse. The guardhouse was tiny. Wind came through every crack. They used scraps of wood and old newspaper to plug the broken windows. They collapsed onto the dusty floor, gasping. Chunsu reached over to take Jingqing's hand, wearing his most ingratiating smile. Jingqing yanked her hand away. The shock of that shove had cracked a corner of her naive little white flower shell open, exposing the selfish, cold-blooded core beneath. Don't think I don't know what you're planning. Chunsu, I kept you around because you were good-looking and academically impressive. Right now, you're just dead weight. Jingqing sat back against the wall and closed her eyes to recover her strength. From now on, if you lay a hand on me again, I'll send your head the same way as that dog's. Chunsu's whole body stiffened. Hatred flickered in his eyes, then was quickly smothered. He knew. Jingqing had that terrifying purge system. Killing him would cost her nothing. He had no choice but to endure. Meanwhile, inside the safe house 200 meters away, I was lying in a red light therapy tank in the basement, tablet in hand. The civilian internet was down, but my military-grade satellite receiver was still pulling global signals fine. The screen scrolled with news feeds from around the world. National emergency alert. The highest emergency protocols have been activated. Official shelters are open at all locations. Survivors, proceed to your nearest shelter. Local shelter. East District Sports Center. Shelter number 7. I looked at that address. In my previous life, it had genuinely been the largest official stronghold in the early days. But precisely because it held so many people, supplies ran out at terrifying speed, and the management chaos led to that infamous food storage riot, killing tens of thousands within the first month. History hadn't changed its course. Nothing had changed at all. Experience 0%. Upgrade condition. Collect 10 Tier 1 zombie crystal cores. Crystal cores. In my previous life, people didn't discover until the 3rd month that the crystals inside zombie skulls could be used to enhance abilities. I already knew Jing Qing, that idiot, had been so busy killing the dog to survive that she'd left the most valuable piece of the trophy behind in the snow. That's my experience crystal. Can't afford to waste it. I changed into a set of lightweight nanothermal combat gear, picked up my tactical hatchet. I decided to take a little walk in the blizzard. First night of the apocalypse, time to harvest my first real windfall. Check on whether those 2 watchdogs had frozen to death while I was at it. Sealed head to toe in a nano-heated tactical suit, I moved across the west suburb wasteland. 50 meters ahead, the zombie dogs were circling the guardhouse. 7 of them total. I regulated my breathing, then burst from behind the snowdrift. The first zombie dog was still growling at the guardhouse, not even turned around yet, when my hatchet arrived. One dull thud. It split straight through the hardened skull. Kill, Tier 1 zombie dog. Experience gained. The noise immediately drew the other 6. The lead dog, largest of the pack, a Tibetan Mastiff, wheeled its head around. Those glowing dead eyes locked onto me. One coil of its hind legs, and the massive body launched like a tank. When it was half a meter from me, I raised my left hand and aimed at the ice beneath the dog's feet. That instant, a 2-meter diameter circle of ice and frozen earth simply ceased to exist. The Mastiff's footing was gone. It plunged straight down. Not to kill you, to catch you. I jumped in after it. My tactical hatchet cut an arc through the air. Die! The blade caught the Mastiff at the vulnerable junction of neck and skull. A monstrous head rolled. Kill elite zombie dog. Plus 20 experience. Drop. Tier 1 strength crystal core plus 1. A core. Got one. My heart jumped. I crouched and forced myself to ignore the revulsion as I rummaged inside the Mastiff's skull and quickly extracted a fingernail-sized crystal, glowing with a faint red light. This was the most hard currency in the apocalypse. Crystal cores were the source of a zombie's power, and the key to human evolution. The 5 remaining zombie dogs above the pit were still barking, but afraid of the drop, none dared come down. I looked up with a cold smile. Take your time. One at a time, you're all my experience points. A thought and emotion. I pulled a modified nail gun from my storage space. What followed was 5 minutes of target practice. I stood at the bottom of the pit. It was basically a shooting gallery. Done. I climbed out, patted down every corpse. Lucky night, 7 dogs had yielded 3 crystal cores. The system experience bar was already at 45%. I tossed the cores into storage, then walked to the guardhouse. Empty. Only disordered boot prints, and one line scratched into the wall with a fingernail. Jean Buffon, you will regret this. I let out a short, dismissive laugh. I wasn't worried about 2 grasshoppers making any kind of trouble. In this apocalypse, there were fates worse than death, especially for 2 people with inflated egos and paper-thin survival instincts. Looks like they'd made it to the official shelter. Fine. Let them enjoy whatever that place had to offer. That shelter was the real crucible. I turned and left. My silhouette dissolved into the storm. This outing had confirmed more than just my combat capability. It had locked in one truth. In a world where all rules had collapsed as long as you have the right target. My new objective. The number 1 People's Hospital in the city center. Not just zombies in there, but antiviral serum I desperately needed. Couldn't cure mutation, but it could treat ordinary infection and flu. In the early days, that was priceless. Meanwhile, at the East District Sports Center, the building had been converted into a temporary shelter. Thousands of survivors were crammed at the entrance. A chaos of sobbing, cursing, and screaming for help. Armed soldiers maintained tense order. Jing Qing and Shansu were mixed into the crowd, disheveled and wretched. Stop! Where do you think you're going? A soldier blocked the 2 as they tried to push to the front. Jing Qing waved her arms frantically. I'm an awakened ability user. The soldier blinked. Command had circulated files about identifying people with special abilities, but there had been too many fakers over these past days. Prove it, the soldier said flatly. Jing Qing steeled herself, fighting through the exhaustion and the dizziness from hunger, and extended her hand toward a massive roadblock stone nearby. One word. Purge. Red light flashed. The several hundred-kilo block of stone vanished from existence. As if it had never been there, the crowd went instantly silent. The soldier's pupils contracted sharply. He immediately grabbed his radio. Confirmed at the entrance. A space type. No, correction, an elimination type awakened. Request instructions. 5 minutes later, Jing Qing and Chan Su were escorted into a warm office. A middle-aged man in a military coat sat behind the desk. He looked Jing Qing up and down. So your ability is purging? Supervisor Wang tapped a pen in his hand. What's the range? Can you eliminate living people? Anything within 2 meters. Now that she could feel the heating, Jing Qing could actually speak coherently. I can kill people too. Just on the way here I killed a mutated mastiff. Commander, I'm a combat type specialist. I want a private room. And meet. Supervisor Wang smiled. The kind of smile you make at a joke that lands a little too well. Combat type. Little girl. You killed one dog and you think you're invincible? He stood and walked to the window, pointed out at the seething tide of zombies beyond. There are tens of thousands of them out there. Your ability kills one at a time and burns you out in a few uses. On an actual battlefield, that's worth less than nothing. A sniper can do in one bullet what you do with your entire body. Why would I send you out to die? Jing Qing's expression froze. That said, Supervisor Wang shifted tone, his gaze drifting to the snow-buried runway outside. Your ability can't fight monsters, but it's perfect for something else. The snow has blocked the roads. Supply convoys can't get through. Even the planes can't take off, the runways are buried. We need to clear a lifeline. Your ability to clear snow would be miraculous. Clear snow? Jing Qing felt like she'd been slapped with raw sewage. I'm an awakened. I have a cheat ability. I'm destined to be the queen of the apocalypse. And you want me to be a janitor? I refuse. I'm an ability user. How dare you humiliate me like this? Refuse. Supervisor Wang's smile vanished. Here, no work, no food. Even ability users are assigned by merit. You can choose to refuse. Go back outside in the snow. He waved his hand. The 2 soldiers beside him stepped forward, guns subtly raised. Chun Su's legs nearly went out. He grabbed Jing Qing's sleeve urgently, signaling with his eyes. Jing Qing, don't do anything rash. Stay alive first. Jing Qing stared at the black gun barrels, then thought about the hellscape outside. Her pride shattered. I'll do it. She choked down her humiliation and lowered her head. Half an hour later, Jing Qing was enrolled in the Special Clearance Unit. Designation: 098. Her job was simple. Stand in front of the engineering vehicles and fire the ability at the 1-meter-deep snowdrifts and debris ahead. Purge. A section of snow wall vanished. The convoy advanced. Purge. Another section. More advance. Every release left her feeling as if her life force had been siphoned out. Faster. What are you waiting for? The convoy is behind you. The monitor roared through his megaphone. Every pause earned a torrent of abuse. Chun Su, having no abilities at all, was assigned to the lowest rung, the recovery team. His job: carry the dead and the zombie-bitten to the burn pits. Faster. What's the holdup? The smell alone could knock a person flat. The infection risk was constant. But for half a moldy steamed bun, he endured. That night, both of them collapsed onto a bunk in the bleachers. Hundreds of people crammed together. Body odor and foot smell layered into something indescribable. Jing Qing stared at her swollen, cracked, bleeding hands, and the tears wouldn't stop. It shouldn't be this way. I have a system. I was reborn. This isn't how it's supposed to go. She thought of Jean Buffon. That warm fireplace. Jean Buffon. You must be so smug right now. Jing Qing dug her nails into the filthy blanket until they broke skin. Wait, the moment I climb high enough, the moment I can get to whoever runs this place, I'll make you give back everything you swallowed. Across town at the number 1 hospital, the plaza outside was packed solid with frozen zombie clusters. They weren't dead. The moment any living warmth registered, they'd snap back to life in an instant. System: activate elite mode. I spent a small amount of energy to wrap my body in a sound-dampening field, then used a grappling hook to scale directly to the 3rd floor window. 3rd floor, the pharmacy. Fewer zombies here. I cleared a handful of wandering nurse zombies and swept my palm along the medicine shelves. Drug by drug, everything vanished into storage. Halfway through, gunfire erupted downstairs. I moved to the window. 2 armored vehicles had rammed through the hospital entrance. 7 or 8 heavily armed thugs were mowing down zombies in a sweeping line. The logo on their vehicles: a black shark fin. Narrow world. I let out a cold, quiet laugh and made no move to leave. Instead, I found a comfortable position against the window frame and watched. The Black Shark gang had solid firepower. They cleared a path fast and made straight for the elevator. But the gunfire was too loud. It hadn't just drawn the zombies from the plaza. Every zombie from the surrounding blocks came converging. Just as the Black Shark men rushed into the lobby, the floor erupted. A zombie over 3 meters tall and built like a wall of solid muscle blasted upward from underground. Tier 2 mutant, tyrant class. Strength type. My pupils dilated slightly. A Tier 2 this soon? What the hell is that thing? The Black Shark men went white. Several AKs opened up simultaneously. The bullets hit the tyrant and barely drew blood. The tyrant roared, casually picked up an abandoned hospital stretcher, and hurled it like a frisbee. 2 Black Shark men became pulp. The whole situation collapsed in an instant. My eyes lit up with a flash of clarity. The Tier 2 core from that tyrant could make me level up directly, and had a high chance of unlocking a new ability. I waited patiently as the Black Shark crew burned down the tyrant's stamina. 5 minutes later, the lobby was silent. All 7 Black Shark members were dead. The tyrant had taken heavy damage, heaving ragged breaths, sprawled on the ground gnawing at corpses to recover. Now, I launched myself from the 3rd floor like a fly. In midair, I pulled a bundle of TNT from storage, lit the fuse and held it out cheerfully. A present for you. The tyrant opened its massive jaw, instinctively assuming it was food, and bit down. I rolled on landing and ducked behind a load-bearing column. The explosion shook the entire building. When the smoke cleared, everything above the tyrant's neck had ceased to exist. Only a colossal headless body lay bleeding in the wreckage. I walked over and dug through the debris, until I found a walnut-sized crystal core. Tier 2 strength crystal core +1 obtained. High purity energy source detected. Absorb immediately for level up? Yes. The core in my hand dissolved into a warm current that poured into my chest. I felt every bone in my body creak as power flooded through me. System level up complete. Current level LV2. New ability unlocked, spatial/basic. Expend mental energy to create a 1-meter spatial rift in physical space. Ignores physical defenses. Cuts through all matter. I looked at my own palm, and made a slow, deliberate motion. A thread of absolute black appeared at my fingertip. I drew it lightly across the armored plating of the vehicle beside me. Like cutting tofu, the solid steel parted along a perfectly smooth line. Absurdly powerful. I dismissed the ability satisfied, and turned my gaze to the 2 armored vehicles still idling, loaded with the Black Shark gang's looted supplies. Much obliged, gentlemen. I gave the bodies a cheerful wave, and collected vehicles and cargo together. Tonight's hospital run had yielded drugs, a level up, and a nice bonus windfall on the side. This was the rhythm the apocalypse was supposed to have. Day 15 of the apocalypse. Shelter number 7, official site. The air here no longer moved. The smell, sour, rancid, hopeless, had soaked into everything. The stadium had once held 50,000. Now fewer than 30,000 remained. Order had collapsed. The generator had finally died, taking the last fragile light with it. In the dark, people ceased to be people. They became starving animals. We want food. Open the storeroom. The commanders are in there eating themselves full while we gnaw on bark out here. A riot exploded without warning. Thousands of survivors, eyes gone red, smashed through the guards' defenses, and surged toward the central management zone like a flood. Gunfire, screaming, and the sounds of biting and tearing blended into one. Jing Qing curled in a corner of the bleachers, gripping a snow-clearing tool that had long since bent out of shape. This past week had been worse than death. Her once smooth hands were covered in frostbite and burst blisters. That purge system had reduced her to high-intensity slave labor. The line's broken. This place is turning into a killing field. Run. But where? Jing Qing stared in despair at the raging storm outside. -60 degrees out there. Stepping out meant instant death. West suburbs. Go find your brother. Chun Su grabbed her shoulders and shook her hard. I've thought it through. The 2 of us going alone didn't work. But what if we brought a few thousand people? No matter how strong that fortress is, can it stand against an army and several thousand desperate people? Jing Qing went very still. Chun Su's voice dropped like a devil whispering in her ear. You know Supervisor Wang still has armored vehicles and heavy weapons, right? If you tell him there's a fortress in the west suburbs, loaded with supplies, heated, powered, completely fortified, what do you think he'll do? Something in Jing Qing's eyes changed. From despair to venomous hate to a kind of frenzied, certain resolve. Why should I be suffering in hell while Jean Buffon lives in paradise? Since you won't open the door for me, I'll bring hell to your doorstep. If we die, we all die together. In the central management office, Supervisor Wang was sweating through his collar, barking orders to destroy files and prepare evacuation. Sir, I know a place. Jing Qing burst in. Guns pointed at her. She screamed over all of them. I know where there are supplies. Tens of thousands of tons of supplies. Generators. Absolutely fortified defenses. Supervisor Wang spun around and locked his eyes on her. What did you say? If you're lying, I'll shoot you right now. I'm not lying, it's my brother's place. He's a stockpile type awakened. Before the apocalypse he already emptied every cold storage facility in the city. It's at the abandoned factory in the west suburbs. Take that place. Everyone lives. Supervisor Wang's eyes lit up, the greedy gleam of a man glimpsing survival. Good. Very good. Pass the word. Everyone listen up. If you want to live, if you want to eat, follow me. Target. West suburbs. Whoever helps take it down. Take whatever you want from inside. The information spread like a virus through the shelter. There's a grain fortress in the west suburbs. Some rich kid hoarded tens of thousands of tons of food. Kill him. Take everything. The mob that had been ripping each other apart suddenly had a shared target. Half an hour later, a convoy of 5 armored vehicles at the front, a dozen converted trucks behind them, followed by several thousand survivors, surged out into the blizzard. Jing Qing sat in the lead armored vehicle, a compressed cracker in her hand, given by Supervisor Wang. She smiled slowly, cold and cruel. Brother, I've brought an army to your door. Let's see you refuse to open it now. And at the very rear of the convoy, the zombie tide, drawn by the scent of the living, had silently fallen into step behind them. Death was harvesting. The fortress alarm wasn't blaring. It had been replaced by a rousing symphony. I stood in front of the bulletproof floor-to-ceiling window on the second floor. Black tactical coat, glass of red wine, looking down at the column winding through the snow like a distant snake. So you finally came. My gaze swept the security monitors dotted with red blips. System alert. Large-scale hostile forces approaching. Enemy composition. Armored vehicles X5, heavy machine guns X3, RPG rockets X5, awakened combatants X12, approximately 3,000 plus armed civilians. Tier 1 zombie horde X5, 000 following behind. Tier 2 mutants X3. You really do think highly of me. I took a slow sip of wine. I felt no panic. If anything, a little excited. These past few days cooped up inside, I was nearly growing moss, leveling up abilities, watching old films. The Razor's Edge was the apocalypse's greatest thrill. The convoy halted 500 meters from the factory. The exterior speaker came on. Supervisor Wang's voice. Attention, Jean Buffon. This is the number 7 shelter official rescue team. We are hereby requisitioning your supplies and shelter under emergency authority. Comply immediately. Disarm. Open the gates. Cooperate. And we guarantee you a special advisor position and your safety. Special advisor. I let out an amused sound into the mic. You mean special slave. My voice spread across the field, carrying naked mockery. Wang, in a previous life, I remember you had a fondness for vivisecting awakened users. What? Thinking of studying my spatial ability now? Supervisor Wang's face hardened. He hadn't expected the man to be this completely uncooperative. Jing Qing, you said you could break the door. Get up there. Let me see what that purge ability can actually do. Jing Qing was pushed forward. She grabbed a megaphone and stood on top of the armored vehicle. Jean Buffon, you're surrounded. Look at these people. They're all starving to death. You've hoarded all this for yourself. Doesn't your conscience hurt? Open the door now. Everyone will remember you fondly. Otherwise, when we break through, you'll be torn to pieces. Torn to pieces. I shook my head, fingertips resting lightly on a red button on the control panel. Little sister, you're still so naive. You think bringing all these people here is a threat to me? No. You're sending me road clearance. Fire. Supervisor Wang had lost his patience. An RPG rocket screamed toward the factory gate. But in the instant before impact, an invisible barrier ignited around the gate. The rocket hit it like a mirror, inexplicably reversed course, and plowed directly into a truck on the other side. The truck, packed with armed civilians, detonated into scrap metal. What? Everyone froze. Return fire! Fire! A storm of bullets pelted the walls. Sparks flew. The paint barely chipped. I snapped my fingers. My turn. I pressed the button. Defense system sequence 2. Minefield activated. The snow under the charging crowd's feet suddenly collapsed. Hundreds of mines detonated in rapid succession. The snow turned red. Several hundred people ceased to exist. Retreat! Fall back! The crowd surged in terror, but the rear was still pressing forward. The scene became instant chaos. Then from the snowfields behind them came a deafening chorus of shrieks. Drawn by the explosions and the blood, thousands of zombies finally bared their teeth. Maddened by the scent of blood, they plunged into the rear of the crowd like a blade. Help! Zombies! Zombies from behind! Caught between front and rear, Jing Qing was panicking. Use your ability. Clear the mines ahead, now! Supervisor Wang pressed a gun to her head. Jing Qing shook violently. She fired the purge again and again, but the minefield was too large. What little stamina she had was barely a drop in the bucket. Under a minute, her nose burst with blood, and she collapsed onto the vehicle's roof. I can't. I really can't. Useless. Supervisor Wang kicked her off the vehicle, dove into the armored car and tried to turn it around and flee. But I wasn't about to let him run. You made the trip, leave something behind. I stood on the observation deck, raised my right hand, and made a slow dragging gesture toward the turning armored vehicle. Spatial slash. A visible black rift drew itself through the air without a sound. The armored vehicle, 10 tons of steel, along with Supervisor Wang inside, was cleanly cut in two. The field went dead silent, as if every person had been paralyzed by the sheer force of that one strike. Is that the power of a god? Chun Su had been hiding in a pile of corpses. He stared up at the figure standing above, illuminated like a deity, and felt a warm, spreading wetness in his trousers. The battle lasted 3 full hours. Aside from a handful who had fled into the deep snow, the entire 3,000-strong column had been wiped out. Bodies covered every surface. The heat from the blood had thawed patches of snow, which then froze again into a thick layer of red ice, turning the whole area into a vast open-air charnel house. The zombie horde had been mostly swept clear by the mounted heavy machine gun. The blizzard had stopped. A pale moon hung on the horizon, casting cold light on this particular corner of hell. Only 2 living people remained at the gate. Jing Qing and Shin Su. Lucky ones. She'd been kicked off the vehicle at the start, and he'd played dead under the armored wreckage. That's the only reason they'd survived this long. The gate opened slowly. I walked out, tactical hatchet in hand, stepping toward them one step at a time. Brother! Jing Qing was on her knees in the snow, face covered in blood, crawling toward me. I was wrong. I really was wrong. I was forced into this. It was Wang. He forced us to come. You know me, I've always been a coward. Right, we were both coerced. Jean Buffon. No wait. Brother fan. Big bro fan. Considering we go way back. Just let it go already. I'll serve you hand and foot forever. I stopped 2 meters from them. I said nothing. Instead, I reached into storage and pulled out a table and chair. Then a small copper clay stove. Fire lit, pot set on, water poured. The familiar aroma drifted out again soon. I produced a plate of paper-thin sliced lamb, and began rinsing slices calmly in the broth. Want some? I picked up a slice and blew on it. Jing Qing and Chun Su stared, desire and terror in equal measure. Please, just one bite. I beg you. Jing Qing begged through tears. This scene, remarkably familiar. I placed the slice in my mouth and chewed slowly. Last life, I was the one begging like this. Through that locked door. Begging you for a sip of water. Even a bite of a stale cracker. And what did you say? Jing Qing was shaking too hard to speak. You said, supplies are for useful people. Waste doesn't deserve to breathe air. I set down my chopsticks. I looked at them with eyes like ice. I'm giving that back to you. I stood. The tactical hatchet caught the moonlight and threw cold silver. Chun Su. I called his name. Chun Su looked up, hoping for a moment that meant survival. You said you loved Jing Qing. Said you'd die for her. Didn't you? Go ahead then. I made the offer. Kill her, and I'll let you inside for hot pot. A warm room. I can even give you an ability serum. Make you an awakened. A dagger was thrown at Chun Su's feet, the ultimate test of the human heart. Don't. Jing Qing looked at Chun Su in horror, her body recoiling. You wouldn't, right? We're in love. Chun Su stared at the dagger, then looked at the warm, blazing fortress behind Jean Buffon, then back at this woman in front of him, covered in filth, completely devoid of value. In that instant, the mask called love crumbled completely. Chun Su snatched the dagger, and lunged at Jing Qing with something monstrous in his expression. Jing Qing, you heard him. As long as you're dead, I get to live. Anyway, you have no more supplies. Just die for me once. What's it to you? Jing Qing screamed, primal survival instinct detonating one last surge of power. Purge. Stamina gone to the dregs, but the strike landed. The dagger in Chun Su's hand vanished, but he had already thrown himself onto her, both hands closing around her throat. Die, die. Get out of my way. Both of them rolled in the blood-soaked snow, tearing at each other like 2 animals. Ugly. Utterly, completely ugly. I watched with cold eyes, the way you watch a particularly clumsy farce, until both of them were spent, collapsed and gasping. Jing Qing's face torn open. Chun Su with one eye gone blind. Entertaining. I gave a slow clap. But I lied to you. I walked to them and raised the hatchet. My safe house has never accepted trash. In their desperate, dying screams, the blade rose and fell. Blood sprayed across the clean white snow, like a plum blossom blooming in winter. The grievances of this life finally settled. I didn't pause for a moment. I turned, snapped my fingers. The bodies and the distant armored vehicle wreckage were all swept into the system's recycle bin. The entrance was clean again. Back inside, I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and looked out at the storm still raging beyond. The world had ended. but I was still alive, and I would live well. From the wine cabinet I took a bottle of treasured whiskey, poured 2 glasses. One poured onto the ground, ugly, utterly, completely ugly. I watched it all with cold eyes, like watching a particularly clumsy farce, until both of them were exhausted, collapsed on the ground, heaving. Jing Qing's face had been torn open. Chun Su had lost an eye. Entertaining. I gave a slow, deliberate clap. But I lied to you. I walked toward them and raised the hatchet. My safe house has never accepted trash. In their desperate, dying screams, the blade rose and fell. Blood sprayed across the clean white snow, like a plum blossom blooming in winter. The grievances of this life finally settled. I didn't pause for a moment. I turned, snapped my fingers. Every corpse on the ground and the distant armored vehicle wreckage were swept into the system's recycle bin. The entrance was clean again. Back inside, I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and looked at the storm still raging outside. The world had ended, but I was still alive, and I would live well. From the wine cabinet I took a bottle of treasured whiskey, poured 2 glasses. One poured onto the ground, a toast for that foolish version of myself in the previous life. One raised toward the sky, a toast to this brutal, spectacular new world. Hello, Apocalypse. I am Jean Buffon, and this world is mine.